You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 71, Power Posturing. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hello, my friend, and welcome to another episode. I'm so happy to be here with you today. I hope you have had a great week. Have you thought about your supplement regime or supplement buying habits more over this past week? I love supplements, maybe a little too much, but there are important things to keep in mind in order to be able to get the promised benefits from them. Good for you for being an informed customer. The world is a better place when you show up at your best and when people buy good products that are well and sustainably made and don't buy the low quality and unethically sourced stuff. You are awesome. Today we're going to talk about power posturing, which isn't really a term, but I'm calling it that. There's a pretty powerful movement in the world of self-help that the end-all be-all is that our thoughts create our feelings and our feelings create our actions. That's great. I love those people. I think they're doing great work in the world and they should keep on keeping on. But I've always thought that while that is true, it's also true that sometimes our bodies generate impressions or emotions without any conscious thought at all. Like if you're hiking and you suddenly hear something rustling around in the bushes, or you come across someone who just seems super sketchy, but you can't put your finger on why, or you turn the corner and abruptly see a field full of wildflowers. Yes, you could back it up and identify some thoughts after the fact that match up with those feelings, but the thought didn't really come first. I like how Brendan Bouchard says that we have emotions that come up automatically, and their appearance is sort of out of our control. But what is in our control are our feelings, how we choose to continue to feel after that initial emotional appearance. And as it turns out, there are plenty of scientific research to show that our actions influence our feelings all the time. The easiest way to get yourself to feel like doing something isn't usually to create a list of thoughts that will generate the feelings that will lead to the action. It's to start doing it without feeling like it. And then you start to feel like doing it after you already are. Yes, your thoughts probably change in there if you were to fish them out and articulate them, but our actions influence our feelings, and so does our body. I've said many times that our physiology affects our psychology, because it's true. You can do a lot with thought work, and you should. It's amazing. But our bodies and brain aren't separate. The physiological functioning of our body doesn't just produce effects from the neck down. It's super interesting. We'll probably talk more about it in the future. Let me know if you want to hear more about that sooner rather than later. I'd love to hear from you. There's a social psychologist named Amy Cuddy who has the second most viewed TED Talk in the world. When I read that, this made me curious about which TED Talk is the most viewed. So I just looked it up and it's called Do Schools Kill Creativity by Sir Ken Robinson back in 2006. That makes me happy that that's the most viewed talk. Sometimes I get a little pessimistic about the world, so I'm so glad it wasn't bubble butt exercises or how to apply realistic faux freckles or something. Amy Cuddy's talk was Your Body Shapes Who You Are, and she wrote a book called Presence. In her book, she describes a study she did where she took a group of people and put them in a room by themselves and had them do some kind of computerized task. 1/3 of them did it on a desktop computer, 1/3 of them on a tablet, and 1/3 of them did it on a smartphone. Then the experimenter told the participant that they were leaving but would be back after a certain period of time. But then they didn't come back. The study was on assertiveness. Only 50% of the smartphone users got up to go get the experimenter when they didn't come back like they said they would. But 94% of the desktop users went to fetch the experimenter. The study showed that the bigger the device was, the more likely they were to assert themselves. Amy Cuddy's theory is that the smaller the device is, the more we contract our bodies to use it, and that keeping our body in a shrunken inward posture makes us feel powerless, which is pretty scary considering how much time most people spend on smartphones. It's called the eye hunch effect. We poke away at our tiny little devices without realizing that they're actually making us less efficient, less assertive, and less powerful. So consider this if you need to spend hours in front of a screen, as many of us do. Choose your device carefully. Do what my 14-year-old said he wanted to do and get an 84-inch TV to use as a computer monitor. Just kidding. There's got to be some kind of limit. But do you believe that an upright and expansive posture makes you feel psychologically more powerful and ready to handle what comes at you than a Quasimodo iPhone stance? It's all happening below the level of our conscious awareness, but it is happening. In another study by Amy Cuddy, she had research subjects in two groups. One group assumed low power poses. They were slouching, had their hands close to their body and their legs close together and their heads down. The other group assumed high power poses. They took up more space, feet farther apart, hands on their hips, chin up. After only 2 minutes of standing in those poses, the high power posers had a 19% increase in testosterone and a 25% decrease in cortisol in their blood. Low power posers had a 10% decrease in testosterone and a 17% increase in cortisol in their blood. Isn't that so crazy? Significant measurable changes in hormones based on just your posture for only 2 minutes? It also reminds me of an old 1988 experiment by Fritz Strack. Love that name. Our elf on the shelf is named Fritz. He had research participants hold a pencil in their hand or mouth, believing they were testing out ways disabled people could use pencils. And he had them evaluate how funny they thought cartoons were. Of the mouth people, one group had to hold it just between their teeth, and the other group had to hold it just between their lips. The people with the pencil in their lips thought the cartoons were much less funny than the people with the pencil in their hand. And the people with the pencil in their teeth thought the cartoons were much funnier than the people with the pencil in their hand. The theory was that just putting your face in the position of smiling, because you have a pencil between your teeth, makes you happier, and putting your face in the position of frowning, because you have a pencil between your lips, makes you innately less happy. So if we experience an automatic emotion and want to create a different feeling on purpose, the fastest way to get started is to physically assume the posture with our bodies of how we want to feel. It sounds hokey, but a 20% change in hormones is a big deal. Maybe try it before you outright dismiss it. Do it right now. Nobody's looking, I promise. Put your face and or body into the position of someone who's irate, really fuming mad. Stay there for a couple of seconds. How do you feel? Now put your body and face into the position of someone who's completely at peace. Everything is really good. Smile a little bit. Go ahead, get the corners of your mouth turned up a little bit. I already told you that nobody's watching. How do you feel now? You can tell a difference, right? Now, start doing the cha-cha. 1, 2, cha-cha-cha. Just kidding. My boys got tricked into having to learn to cha-cha with actual human girls the other night, and they have some residual PTSD symptoms. Not really. Well, the 12-year-old might. He was not happy about it, and he couldn't even be mollified with ice cream afterward. Hey there, just a quick interruption to say I think the jury's still kind of out on how bad and in what way it's really bad to put aluminum on your skin, but it doesn't seem great, and I figured, why not avoid it? Well, because all of the aluminum-free deodorants I ever tried didn't work. Until I tried Lume. This is the first aluminum-free deodorant I ever tried that actually worked. I was instantly converted. Then, over time, I discovered that the answer to my whole family's itchy skin after every shower problem is Lume's acidified body wash. It's awesome, and their acidified body butter keeps our skin soft and hydrated. They even have a laundry product that makes your clothes smell great. I can't say enough good about Lume. Plus, their commercials are hilarious. You should watch one on YouTube if you haven't seen one yet. If you want to give Lume a try, there's a link in the show notes that will give you $5 off your order. My favorite is the Pink Peony Body Wash. It smells like washing yourself with bubble gum. which I wouldn't recommend, but I do recommend Lume. Okay, back to the show. Okay, so knowing this about shifting our mental state by simply moving the shape of our body in space is interesting. But how can you actually use it in your life? You can certainly stand like Wonder Woman before you have to give a presentation. I think you should act like Wonder Woman at all times. You can gently smile when you're feeling sort of meh. If you've watched my 16-minute mini course on thoughts people who consistently rock their health habits think, you know the trick of physically rubbing your hands together and saying, "Bring it on." Even if you're not 100% sure you want anything brought upon you. It feels kind of evil genius in a good way. Maybe you could stick your pinky in your teeth like Austin Powers, or I guess that's Dr. Evil. The sub point is that there's a lot we can do to cultivate presence and control over our experience. The main point is that we sit and stand in powerless ways way more often than we might think, especially when we're looking at our phones. Amy Cuddy's book is called Presence, which she defines as the state of being attuned to and able to comfortably express our true thoughts, feelings, values, and potential. She explains that presence is not a permanent state. It's a moment-to-moment experience of being yourself. The trick is learning how to experience more and more of those moments more and more consistently. She says that nonverbal expressions of our power are hardwired and independent of our cultural background. We instinctively throw our arms up in a V when we win a race. We naturally expand our bodies when we feel powerful. But the relationship is bidirectional. When you feel powerful, you expand. And when you expand, you feel more powerful. Amy Cuddy says to remember a time when you felt fully in control of your own psychological state, when you had the confidence to act based on your boldest, most sincere self, with the sense that your actions would be effective. How were you holding your body then? She says to recall your greatest moments if you want to create more of them. Assume those same postures to help you get into a similar state of presence again. Another quote from her is, "The way you carry yourself is a source of personal power, the kind of power that is the key to presence. It's the key that allows you to unlock yourself, your abilities, your creativity, your courage, and even your generosity. It doesn't give you skills or talents that you don't have. It helps you to share the ones that you do have. It doesn't make you smarter or better informed. It makes you more resilient and open. It doesn't change who you are. It allows you to be who you are." End quote. 10 episodes. In episode 61, we talked about learning to move properly and all of the ways it can prevent injuries and pain by teaching our bodies to move the way they were designed to move. There's a ton to this. And another book I came across in the past 10 weeks is called True to Form by strength coach and chiropractor Eric Goodman. He created a system called Foundation Movement that aims to correct our poor movement and posture with anchoring and decompression. Anchoring strengthens our ability to hold ourselves upright and propel ourselves with stability and flexibility through various axes of movement. Decompression unwinds and elongates the body that has insufficiently resisted gravity. Remember from our NASA friend Joan Vernikos that having a healthy body is all about resisting gravity correctly. That's why astronauts get physiologically older in space and why sitting too much ages us faster too. Obviously, there's way more to his foundation training methodology, and you can get his book if you want to learn all about it. But Eric Goodman and Joan Vernikos agree that the very best way to move correctly is to resist gravity appropriately. And the very best way to resist gravity appropriately is to stand tall, walk tall, and sit tall. Eric explains that the way to optimize your posture is chest up, chin down. I know, you've probably heard this all before, but if you can bring your sternum up and your chin slightly down, lengthen your spine, and at the same time gently pull the back of your skull up and back in a way that opens your rib cage, you're all set. You can imagine a thread running from the top of your head down through your spine. Imagine gently pulling that thread up. That will widen your back and give you the perfect posture. You could also do the old school girl movie evil governess thing of having to go about your day with a book on your head. That actually works, I guess. I know I've always thought that I should work on my posture. It was another thing on the long list of things I should get better at. I should get one of those governesses to get my posture princess worthy. I'd be a better person if I did. I think you know that kind of thinking isn't helpful. So don't do it. But I hope it helps you to know how deeply powerful it is to move your body correctly. Not just so you can look like a princess or Wonder Woman, but because resisting gravity appropriately keeps us able to physically do all of the things we want to be able to do for so many years to come. It helps us prevent injuries and maintain our ranges of motion. It helps us breathe appropriately, which is hugely important and underappreciated. And it helps us be more of who we are at our most effective best. When we feel powerful, we approach challenges. When we feel powerless, we run away from them. And we can tip the scales one way or the other by how we hold our body. We can prime ourselves to be interested in what someone's going to say by sitting up and leaning in as if we were enthralled by them, even if we're not. We can prime ourselves to enjoy our boring commute a little more by gently smiling. We can prime ourselves to succeed by throwing our hands up in the air in victory ahead of time. In her book Presence, Amy Cuddy says, "In the first month after my TED Talk posted, I heard from an Olympic swimming coach who explained how he'd been using a power posing type strategy with great success for years, encouraging some of his swimmers beginning on the morning of the race to physically behave as if they had won their event. Swimmers, as he pointed out, are notorious for their use of dominant body language in the moments before races, not only to signal their power to their competitor, but also to loosen up their muscles and pump themselves up. Sometimes they will literally pound their chests like gorillas. But the approach this coach used, encouraging swimmers to adopt alpha nonverbal postures from the minute they woke up on race days, was most helpful to swimmers who'd been thrown off by a poor performance or who were feeling a wave of insecurity and self-doubt." End quote. So what's the physical shape of your body when you know you've won the day? You've crushed it big time. You know that you've done your most awesome work and you should be so, so proud. How do you stand and sit and walk? You got it? Can you stand and move that way now? How would your day be different if you did? Could you remind yourself to do that every morning? Remember, acting as if you've already won doesn't give you skills that you don't have or make you smarter than you are. It's not to manipulate others. It's to allow us to get just a little bit more personal power to express the best, boldest, most authentic version of ourselves. Sounds pretty good to me. How can you appropriately anchor and decompress? Resist gravity. Generate the feelings you want on purpose by the way you hold your body. Expand into who you really are. So, one more time. Imagine a thread running from the top of your head, chest up, chin down, relax your shoulders, softly smile. That's like you. I'll leave you with a quote from the great Maya Angelou. "Stand up straight and realize who you are, that you tower over circumstances." End quote. Next week, we're going to talk about something cool you most likely don't know about vitamin E. Until then, use the posture of your body to create your feelings and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.